I have some great news. The Strong Men of Value Academy applications are open. So from the 10th of June until the 27th of June, we are taking new applications for members like you to join our Strong Men of Value Academy. Who's it for? It's for men who have an understanding of what they want from their life and they need accountability, tips, tools, and tricks to increase your productivity to achieve the goals that you're working towards. We all know that goals are milestones to creating the life that you want to live. So if you are ready to be surrounded by some awesome like-minded men, meet weekly to be held accountable towards the goal that you want, please apply and you'll receive a phone call from me directly. If you're wondering if this is still the right fit for you, what I would recommend, if you don't have a life's vision and something that you're working towards creating, go check out our self-discovery program first. That will help you build out your life's vision, get a huge list of goals that you know you need to tick off in order to build that life, and then the Academy will be a better fit for you. I look forward to reading your applications, and once again, thank you for supporting the podcast. The Men That Can Project podcast, a podcast empowering career-driven men to live more fulfilling lives. We are here to challenge your beliefs, redefine success, and talk about the important stuff in a relatable way. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. My name's Lachlan Stuart. Let's get into it. Welcome to the very first hybrid episode. This is going to be great. Today I'm sitting here with Matt Overton. Mate, this idea came to light very quickly.
Yes.
We'd throw a hybrid model where I would get to introduce you to my audience and vice versa. And we've been throwing ideas around the last couple of days, and we were connected through a mutual friend. I actually heard of you a couple of days before from a podcast my wife was on, and she's like, you got to connect with Matt.
Wow.
The boys down the road at our Music Row hideout. And I was like, all right. And then literally 2 days later, here we are. So welcome.
Yeah, no, welcome.
Yeah,
welcome over to the house, mate. It's been really cool. I mean, honestly, it's like Ryan over at the hideout had texted me a couple of days prior to Justin Todd reaching out to me about, hey man, you got to get this guy Lachlan on. I'm like, I keep hearing this Lachlan guy's name, this Australian guy that just moved here to Nashville, and then Justin did your podcast, and then Mac Hereford just did your podcast. These are all people that we've done podcasts together. So, I mean, we got introduced through a text. I said, hey, let's do a hybrid, podcast. Let's collab. Let's make it happen. And we just went kind of over some ideas and spitballing over the weekend. And now you're here. So thanks for coming over to the house, mate.
Mate, thanks for having me. But who is Matt Overton? Can you give everyone a bit of a rundown?
Yeah, I mean, Matt Overton, I would say, first and foremost, a follower of Jesus Christ, a husband, a father of 2 girls, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. Played in the NFL for more than a decade. I'm in real estate. I host the podcast, Stay Ready, the podcast right here in Nashville. So I have worn many different hats, but there's no question about like my identity is solely in my faith, being a husband, being a father, being a leader, being a servant, and ultimately being the best disciple that I can be. And that's where my podcast comes into play, where, love sharing testimony, love sharing story, the struggles, the realness, the vulnerability of everything that we go through. Whether you're an artist, an athlete, a husband, a dad, a mother, whatever the case may be, I love sharing those stories. And God willing, if I go to another NFL team, using that platform to be a shining light and a disciple in that locker room, and using that field as my ministry, has really been the main goal, keeping everything centered, and I'm doing my best. But in a nutshell, that's Matt Overton.
Dude, there's so much I want to dive into there.
Well, before that, tell me, mate, who's Lachlan Stuart?
Mate, I do love that you started with the roles that you play, the father, the son. And for me, I believe I'm a great husband, a great mate, and a great son. And it took me a while to get to that point. And along with that, I'm a podcaster, coach, and I still consider myself an athlete, even though I'm not doing anything professionally. But currently what that looks like for me, where I've moved over to America here in Nashville to support my wife in her career, which is a different sort of role and not, I guess, stereotypical for the male, but it's something that I'm enjoying, and it's also giving me a lot of life lessons and learning more about myself. And previously that's looked like I played rugby over in France for rugby union for the American audience. I've been a builder. I've been Brisbane's best Uber driver. I've worn many hats like yourself, which has helped me navigate to the man that I am today. And I think that I'm very comfortable in who I am. I understand what it looks like to want to stand out as my unique self. And I guess the goal for me is helping inspire other men to live their best life by becoming the best version of themselves in whatever that looks like. And that's sort of what's led me here.
That's awesome. Well, welcome to the States. How long have you been here now?
Been here since October. So what's that, 6-7 months?
Sure.
We moved over. There were 6 of us. So my wife is in a band. She is in a band with her sister, and obviously Liam, my brother-in-law, who's sitting over there. And then her brother, George, and his wife, Kathleen. So all 6 of us.
It's the Partridge family.
Mate, it is the Brady Bunch. We're here. We're in Nashville.
Yeah, man.
And it's been, we've all left, I guess the partners, as we're labelled, the partners have all left behind our careers to help the band chase their dreams here in America, which has been awesome fun so far and really loving it.
That's incredible. Well, what we wanted to do is we wanted to break this podcast into 2 different sessions, essentially. So part 1, really want to touch in, and you're a coach. You talk about, discipline. You talk about struggles and sacrifice and challenging yourself. I mean, you just did 30 marathons in 30 days.
Yeah, I've done that.
Is that a world record? Did you find that out?
Dude, it was a world record. So here's where I messed up. So Guinness World Record, for anyone who hasn't done the process, you've got to email them and let them know the record you're going for or the record you're creating. And then they'll email back and give you guidelines. So I did that. And one guideline that I did not tick when I sent off my record was to calibrate every rower.
Okay.
And because I didn't calibrate every rower, the record didn't count. But the cool thing was I had, people have broken it since and have always tagged me as like the official guy. So it's not something I want to do again.
So a full marathon here in the States is 26 miles, right?
Yep.
Just over a little bit more than 26 miles. So you did that every single day for 30 days.
Correct. Yep. Got up, went for 4.5 hours, managed to get a good community of people. Some people were doing their first 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, or miles. What would that be? Like 2.5 miles, 6 miles, and then 13.2 miles. And watching people have their own breakthroughs was what it was really about. Because there was part of me, and going back to challenging yourself, and I'd love to touch on your story a bit with this as well, but I've done years of conditioning myself to be confident in my ability to achieve certain physical feats. I was never doubting myself to do it. Even some of the people closest to me were like, I'll give you 7 days and you're out. And to me, I believed, because I understood what it took holistically from recovery to preparation to having the right support network, there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to do it. So using that platform to then reach out to the community and say, I want people to come along and do this with me, whether it is your first, whatever distance you choose your distance, and whether you want to do back to back with me, let's do it and have personal breakthroughs. Like one story that really stood out to me, Scott Townsend, he's one of the, I guess, the more mature members of our academy, over 45, but watching him have the personal breakthroughs. So he started just doing 5K a day, and he did it every day with me, 5K a day, then 10 kilometers a day, then he got up to about 6 half marathons, and then he finished with a full marathon.
Wow.
And this was a guy who'd never rode 5 kilometers before, and the personal breakthroughs that he had, not only by doing that, but how it improved and boosted his confidence was something that I was like, that's why you got to do hard things. That's where you build the confidence, the self-esteem. You feel like you're capable of more than you originally thought. And I'm sure you've had experiences like that as well. Throughout your football career as well. Obviously physically it's challenging. Yeah. But mentally, from my understanding of the NFL, it's cutthroat. Like if you don't perform well, you can be shipped off and it's all over. So what's that been like for you navigating challenges?
I mean, it's just interesting because, you come from, we come from 2 different cultures, right? Yeah. And it's just so interesting. I really want to dive into the cultural background of being born and raised in Australia, because here in America, we are tuned and primed and introduced to sports at a very, very young age. It's even so hyper-focused nowadays. Yep. Because you have everything is a technician. You have the throwing coach, you have the quarterback coaches, you have the running coaches, you have all these resources now, YouTube, internet, social media, TikToks. And so me growing up in the 90s, the only thing we knew is like, hey, go sign up for baseball. When baseball is over, go sign up for basketball. When basketball is over, go sign up for football. I gravitated naturally to football and baseball. I grew up in a football family. My dad played in college. My grandfather played in college. My grandfather at the time was a head coach at a university. My dream was always to play in the NFL.
Yep.
And so at the age of 8, my mom signed me up. It was awful. It sucked because in the heat of summer, it's 100 degrees out. You got all the pads on. You're sacrificing your summer for practice. You're not at the swimming pool. You're not riding your bike around. You're not going to the parties. You're not just hanging out. So at a young age, I had to just be just thrown into how to be structured, how to have a routine, how to sacrifice those things that you want to do for the dream of something so much bigger, And again, I was 8 years old and, the NFL was my dream, but I didn't, you're just a young kid. You're just going through the ebbs and flows. You're doing it because your friends are doing it. You're having fun. You don't take it too seriously. But I remember my first time being thrown out there. It was hot. It sucked. I didn't like doing it. It was uncomfortable. I just wanted to be at home with my friends, swimming, playing, enjoying my summer off from school. But no, I was out there. I was running. My mom made sure I was there at every practice. I didn't skip. But that early discipline instilled into me is really what helped create an incredible foundation for me to grow and to achieve and actually go after my dream. Because if that foundation wasn't set early on, and I didn't have the parents to push me or the role models around me, I mean, that dream probably would have died pretty quickly. Not having that routine and that structure and that support, and to really know what sacrifice and discipline was at a young age. It's really, really important. And so, so essentially from the age of 8 years old up to now, I'll be 39. My entire life has been dedicated and focused and poured into the sport of football, American football. Right. And, it just, you go through the youth and Pop Warner, then you go to high school, then you go, you try to get to college. And, if you look at all the statistics over all the sports, it's like, there's 10 million athletes that are trying to go to college, but only, maybe 7% of that 10 million go to college and get a scholarship. Or out of that small percentage, only 1% gets that scholarship. Yeah. And then from college to the pros, there's about, there's only 257 guys drafted out of the entire country, out of 10,000 people. So that percentage is like 1%. And out of that percent, only half of that percent actually makes it and survives the NFL for more than 2 years.
That's incredible.
So just the odds keep, going down and down and down and down. And it's like, when you're such a young kid, you don't quite understand how difficult it is to be a professional athlete just because of the statistics. A lot of things have to go your way. You got to be healthy. You got to be elite at your sport, at your position. You got to keep that drive because one thing too of introducing something so young to somebody, whether it's sports or some sort of trade or activity, you could get burnt out. Right.
Yep.
And if you're so, I think that was the beauty of growing up when I did in the 90s. It was we didn't have the distractions and we didn't have the drive to just pour everything so much into one sport. Where nowadays, like these kids are almost forced and fed like they need to do the extra. They need to go to camps. They need to go to these coaches. And I feel like these kids just get burned out. We just did it for fun.
Exactly.
We just enjoyed it. And yeah, the good kids just kept going on.
I feel like that ties into discipline as well. We think that more equals better in all aspects of life. And I feel the reason why a lot of people struggle with discipline, because if you were to zoom out at your life and write down all the things that you spend time doing, husband, father, football player, mate, all the other things that you're doing, there would be things that you're more disciplined in than others.
Oh, yeah.
Because of priority. When we then go, I want to improve my relationship or I want to improve my income or, my social network, we then go, I need to do more without looking at where is my time already. So we don't clear anything out. We just add. And that's why if I look at my own life, I've always been extremely disciplined with my health. It's one thing, I wanted to be a professional athlete. I then understood the value of having good health from energy and it looks after my mental health. So I've always prioritized that.
Then when I moved from rugby into the next phase of my life, it was like, I need to be successful. How do I do that? I need to put as much on my plate as humanly possible because that's hustle culture. And I started noticing other areas of my life lack discipline. I wasn't showing up for my wife or Amy, my partner at the time. I wasn't showing up for my mates. I wasn't showing up for myself. It was just about making money. And so I think if people are able to zoom out a little bit, they can notice I do have the ability to be disciplined. I just haven't established my priorities and I just haven't removed things from my life. And so to tie it into your point, very similar to me growing up, I didn't have all these specific coaches. It was just like cross-country season, rugby season, cricket season, volleyball season, swimming. Like you do all these different things and that was it.
Yeah.
You didn't really zoom in on the specifics of it. And I think the ability, and I know Justin speaks about this a lot, the ability to be in different sporting environments or athletic environments, develop different skills, you can start piecing it together, which makes you an overall better athlete. So that when and if the opportunity presents itself to go pro or to make a career out of it, it's like now you can hone in with all the experiences and information that you've got. And I think that's why a lot of people are struggling with discipline.
Yeah, well, it's also too, I also, when I reflect on growing up, like our coaches were really hard on us at a young age.
Yep.
My first time trying out for American football, Pop Warner football, I was cut. I didn't make the team. So we all sat in the circle. We went through like a week of tryouts. All the kids came up, and if your name was called, you made the team. Well, I was one of the last, 15 or 20 kids that didn't hear their name. So I didn't make the team. I was devastated. I cried. 8 years old, right? I felt like I wasn't good enough. We found another team that kind of brought on those kids that didn't make it, and I played. But I was taught at a very, very early age that life isn't fair. Just because you're out there trying doesn't mean you're good enough to be on the team. Whereas now I feel like we're in such a heightened culture with these young kids that it's almost like the participation trophy, right? Like if they sign up, they're on the team. They don't necessarily earn the team. I had to earn my spot. I had to earn my way onto that team because the kids were better than me. It was my first time trying out, so I had little experience, but I learned at a very, very good young age. And this is, when you look at over the course of my career, being cut the very first time trying out for football was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, because that would only foreshadow what was going to happen to me in my professional career, because I would end up getting cut over and over and over again. If I didn't know how to deal and handle with that letdown and disappointment early on, maybe when I got my first time getting cut from a team, in my 20s or whatever the case may be, I'd be so discouraged that I didn't know how to pick myself back up and just keep going, And so that's one thing that I see nowadays, where we're so afraid of hurting these kids' feelings as parents, as coaches, as teachers, whatever the case may be. And yes, there's a time and right place for tough love. But, at the end of the day, if we don't teach these kids how to handle adversity and handle disappointment and setbacks, not everything is going to be fair. Yeah. The world is not fair. And you'll learn the hard way when you get into the real world right after college and you thought everything was good and kosher. And then you get denied that job over and over and over again. And so I think for me, getting that disappointment early on top of the discipline and the structure and the routine and the sacrifice, learning what sacrifice really was, that helped me tenfold moving forward.
Let's take a quick break.
Are you tired of waking up with a dry mouth, feeling sluggish? I was too, until I discovered the power of mouth taping. I read a book called Breathe, and it opened my eyes to how I could get a better sleep. So I started taping my mouth and the results were astounding. Not only did I wake up feeling refreshed, but the data on my Whoop suggested I was getting more REM and more deep sleep, which led to me feeling better every morning. But I wanted a better solution, not just sticky tape, something that was effective and comfortable. That is why I co-founded Recover Right with a few friends. We are dedicated to helping Australians get fast and easy access to mouth tape and nose tape so you can breathe better, sleep better, and recover right. Use the discount code TMTCP for 10% off at the checkout. Sleep better with Recover Right.
I agree. There's a big issue with it now, and we're literally robbing people of the ability to build a great life.
Yeah.
Because if you think about, as much as in the short term, it sucks being cut from a team. I've been cut from teams. I'm sure everyone here has been cut from teams. And you can make the meaning be, I'm not good enough, which the reality is you're not currently good enough. But are you going to allow that to define you and you can stay there and feel bad about it and not do anything? Or do you go, what do I need to do to be good enough or to be better?
Yeah.
And that's what, very similar to yourself, I've always had that mentality. And once again, it definitely helps if you've got a great support network around you. It definitely helps if there's an opportunity to develop those skills. I understand not everyone gets that, but you still can create it wherever you're coming from. But if people try to coddle you, your parents try to go, oh, it's all right, Lockie. Now let's get you a 10th place medal, which I'm glad I never got. It's like, okay, well, I'm being validated for not being good enough. Maybe I'll stay there. That's comfortable. But then you get to the real world, as you said, and it's like, it's not good enough. You're not going to make the squad. You're not going to get the girl that you want. You're not going to get the income that you want. And then you'll look to blame everyone else because my whole life I've been handed it. If I've had a little tantrum or whatever, people then go, oh, it's all right, Lockie.
Yeah.
And like, that doesn't work. And in the process, you're robbing people of self-respect. You're robbing people of self-esteem because if you've never earned anything, you don't know what it's like to truly go through that journey where there are the peaks and there are the valleys. And that's what really makes life enjoyable because, as I'm sure when you got cut, it sucked.
Yeah.
But you can look back on it now and go, that was one of the most, one of the most pivotal moments in my life that have made you the man you are today. And people are getting robbed, or if you're a parent, you may be robbing your children of that. And we've got to look at it once again, disassociate from it and go, okay, what does my child need to learn, or what do I need to learn from this situation or experience that is going to help me 5, 10, 15 years down the track? Because I'd never learned that when I, all through school, I was a national level runner. I did try, but I'll say I didn't put a lot of effort in. I was skateboarding. I was doing all the other sports as well, and I was very lucky. And then when I started getting dropped from sporting teams as well, I was like, this isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've always not really shown up and done well. And then I started making it the meaning of I'm not good enough. And then I stopped getting, the praise from the friends or the family who'd always be like, oh, well done on that and well done on this. And then you're in this area of isolation and I didn't know how to deal with it. And I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the community to sort of help me navigate that. It's just like fend for yourself. And fortunately, I was able to think long term and like, what do I want the next phases of my life to look like and who do I need to become? And because my mum never, lack of a better word, spoon fed me, she's just like, fucking figure it out. I ended up figuring it out. And that's why I believe the position I'm in today, I'm very competent and I believe in my ability to get things done because I know if I don't understand it or if it is uncomfortable, I am resourceful enough or I can reach out to people to help me navigate those areas. And that's what people lack. We lack the ability to communicate. We don't have good support networks. Literally basic problem, like what I would say common sense is missing. And that all starts with that, what we've said is we're trying to make our kids or people feel confident right now. We avoid the tough conversations. We avoid cutting people from our life because, hey, no. Another story, my ex-girlfriend gave me the best life lesson because I'd been cheating on her and I'd done that a lot in previous relationships and I'd always find a way to manipulate and get it back.
Mm-hmm.
And she fully cut it and then I was left going, oh man, maybe I am a bit of a pig of a bloke. But that then once again forced me to go, okay, in my next relationship, how do I want to show up? How do I need to show up to be better? And had she not done that, given me the tough love then, who knows what I'd be doing now?
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And talk on, kind of your upbringing with your mom. I was very fortunate to have two very, very supportive parents. They were divorced, but I lived primarily with my mom, but spent a lot of time with my dad. My dad was a police officer. My mom worked multiple jobs to support us. And, my dad would make every game. My mom would try to get home as fast as she can to get me to practice or find somebody to to take me to practice, whatever. But this is during the age where, hey, if you had a bicycle, hop on that bike and get your butt to practice.
Yeah.
Like you can pedal yourself for a few miles to get there. Right. And I had to fend for myself. I was the only child. I'd come home, make myself dinner, get myself to practice, get my practice equipment ready. And I had to do that stuff at a very early age, but I had a lot of help around me, whether it's a neighbor, whether it was a family friend, whether it was my mom or my dad. They were always there trying to do whatever they could at their best to make sure that I was provided for, whether it's transportation to a practice or a game, everything. But I did a lot of things independently. I had to figure it out. Like, hey, if I don't have a ride to practice, I need to get there. I'll put the skates on. I'll ride my bike. I had to do it. I have the big bag on and I'm just huffing down the street and getting to practice because you don't want to be late to practice because you don't want to run those laps. You don't want to have the extra conditioning. You don't want to get scolded in front of your peers. And it's just the things that we were just kind of immersed in and surrounded by, just that mentality of hard work and sacrifice and figure it out. Like my grandfather, who was the coach, he had a saying, so simple, but so profound. So what would be his response, right? Like you can complain, you could moan about everything. I could have called my grandfather and I did. I was crying on the phone. I told him I got cut from that team. So what? Not a big deal. How are you going to figure it out? How are you going to respond from this? Obviously he had, great words of wisdom for me, but, over as I got older and is going through middle school and high school and the pros, like, so what was just so profound to me. It's like, man, like at the end of the day, I'm chasing after a childhood dream that's a kid's game. It's not that serious. It's football. It's not that serious. There's video games for it. You watch it on Sunday every weekend. We get paid very, very handsomely to play a kid's game. We're not going overseas to war. I'm not on the streets as a police officer, 24/7 like my dad was. I'm not working 3 jobs to help support my family like my mom did for me. There's so many other things that are so much more difficult and much more pressure. I mean, there's a lot of pressure that we feel as a professional athlete because the society puts the pressure on you because they want to be entertained. You have to uphold this status. You have to uphold this identity. You have to uphold this achievement. You're put on a pedestal. You're a superhero to all these kids. You're a superhero to the city. You're a superhero to all these people who wish they could be in your shoes. But at the end of the day, it's a kid's game. You win or you lose. You go home. You go back to your family. You try again next week. It's not a big deal. Yes, people bet on games and they got negative comments in your Instagram and Twitter because you're on their fantasy team and you messed the game up and they lost money. Who cares?
Yep.
Whatever. You'll wake up the next morning, forget about it. Right. And so I try to have that perspective now where for the longest time trying to chase this dream of playing in the NFL, I mean, my identity was solely laser focused on football. I was the football player. I was going to wear that NFL helmet. I was going to have that jersey with my name on the back. That identity was just like rooted in my soul and I couldn't let anybody tell me otherwise. But, through when I got to the Indianapolis Colts was the very first team that I played for, finally made the roster. This is in 2012. The 3 pillars of the Colts team was faith, family, football, in that order. Well, if you would ask me at the time, mine was football, family, faith. Maybe family and faith was intertwined, but football was the priority. Like, we're here to play. We're here to win. How is football not number one, right? You are paying us to play football. But it was always faith, family, and football. So in that order. And so my priorities were so messed up early on. Like I sacrificed family time. I sacrificed friendships. I sacrificed going out, having a good time. I sacrificed a lot because of football. Maybe didn't have the greatest relationship with my family because I moved away halfway across the country. Wasn't always in communication with them all the time. I mean, they still loved me and supported me. We talked quite a bit, but it wasn't as rich and as, I wasn't always, seeking to have that connection with my family because I was out doing my thing. I was finally living my dream, right? And that played a major role in relationships, down the road, when it started to dating and all that kind of stuff. But, football was the precedent for the longest time. And it took me until I got cut a few times and get knocked in my butt that football doesn't care about me. The NFL doesn't care about me. I am just a number. I'm just a face. I'm just a name. It doesn't matter how good you are. You are just a person. You're a piece of meat, and you can be replaced in an instant. And so when I got cut and got thrown back onto the streets, I was like, man, my priorities are messed up, man, because now I'm not the football player anymore. I don't have that identity anymore. It needs to be faith. It needs to be family. It needs to be, then football's like on the back end, you know what I'm saying? So it took me a long time to prioritize that kind of stuff, because I think when we are chasing a dream, we're chasing something to achieve. You mentioned priorities at the very beginning.
Yep.
A lot of important things go on the wayside. Relationships, friendships. Maybe I'm going to go to the gym before I go to work because I need to train first before I go clock in at work. You know, but man, when you can take a step back and, like you said, you know, just really look at your life from a different perspective, a higher point of view, and like see where you are pouring your energy at. And it is, at times, I believe that it's important to pour certain energy in things because you have to.
I was going to say that. Do you feel you would have been as successful in your career had you not have been that obsessed with it?
No. I think you have to have a level of being obsessed with your craft.
Yeah.
All the greats are obsessed.
Yep.
Now, is there a healthy obsession versus a toxic and negative obsession? I believe so. I mean, you could run yourself into a wall without even knowing it. You can just deplete everything. You can burn bridges. You can step on people just to get what you were at. And I've seen it done. I know a lot of people have probably done it. A lot of our childhood heroes have probably done it. They'll cut the next guy just to get ahead of them, you know? And, I believe in integrity. I believe in having a healthy balance. You could be obsessed, but you can do it in the right way, And so, if I would have not have been as obsessed and constantly daydreaming and dreaming and thinking about football, no, I don't think I would have ever gotten to have the career that I've had. But to keep that career afloat and to have longevity in the NFL, when the average is only 2 years now, I've made it a decade plus. Yes. I had to be obsessed. I had to care, but I had to have the right balance where football wasn't everything to me.
Do you think the way I think about it is, I believe you have to go all in on stuff, especially in the beginning. It's like a bell curve. Like in the beginning, it's just straight up. All your attention and focus has to be on it because what you lack in skill, you're giving in time. And it doesn't matter whether it's relationship. You think about the start of your relationship. You think the start of a business or a career. It's like, I need to figure this out or I'm screwed. Same with the thing that you want. But over time, you build reputation, you create leverage, you become more efficient so you can start looking at the other things.
Absolutely.
I believe one of the biggest challenges, and I'm probably part of the problem with it, is I talk about balance a lot for people. And I've tried to live a more balanced life since I've been here, but I've also noticed results in specific areas have dwindled. And I believe that's because I haven't given the process the respect that it needs because I'm like, oh, I've got this is fine. But I'm also disrespecting the people who've made progress and done well in certain areas. So what I then need to look at is, okay, what's really important to me? And going back to, the greats have been super obsessed, and maybe there is a point where you're too obsessed. Elon Musk, his quality of life, I wouldn't want. But if you asked Elon, he's living his dream. And I'm very focused on helping men or people in general decide what that looks like for them, because we have been sold a narrative as they go to school, either play football or go to college and house kids, retire sort of thing. That's the thing. And so many people are unhappy. Suicide's at an all-time high. Divorces are at an all-time high. And I'm speaking from Australia.
Yeah.
Probably say maybe similar.
Very similar here. Yeah.
And loneliness epidemic is at an all-time high. So clearly something's not working. And if I were to look at it through the lens of, if I'm to change how I feel in the situation and the people listening, if they're to change their situation, it falls back on you. Therefore, you need to think about what you want your life to look like? And once again, no one really knows. We have an idea of what we think we know, but it's not till we're on our deathbed we can look back and go, I nailed it, or I messed up.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that we get a more clear picture is by having these new experiences, right? Embracing new experiences, reflecting on the impact of them. Is it something that I'm enjoying, or is it not? Is this person adding value to my life, or are they not? Is football still valuable to me at this point, or is it not? Right? And then we just allow ourselves to make decisions. I think too many people are giving away their power, and they're listening to me or anyone, and they're like, I like the idea, I want to do that. They're not taking responsibility for what they want and how their life then develops. So going back to the segue of that bell curve, if you know that football is important, or for me, it's like I still love training like a beast, I love it, and challenging myself, that's a priority. My relationship, also a priority. Making money and growing my business, priority. And over the years, I've become more efficient at it, which now creates leverage in time and efficiency. So I can manage these three things and do them pretty well, where it's not absolutely destroying my marriage. It's not always perfect. As you said, sometimes I have to hone in on the business, or other times I'm really going to dial in on fitness for the next probably 12 months. And then I know the consequences of that. And if you're aware of the consequences of your actions, you can then have a look at it to go, what do I need to do here to best preserve what I've got? Meaning, when I did the marathon rows, I made sure that it wasn't going to impact my relationship. I knew Amy was traveling for a month. So I was like, that's the perfect month for me to do it, because she's not going to be sitting at home going, man, you're cooked all day, right? Or you're rowing. So I looked at all the things that were important and understood how, or the impact of what I was currently focused on was going to do that. And it then just made me feel a lot more confident in what I was doing. And I knew that I had the conversations with the people that mattered most. I knew I could go all in on the things that I was trying to achieve. And I knew, because once again, even for the marathons, I wasn't worried, because I've been training since I was like, 8 years old, like in various things. So I understand my body well. I have done plenty of other challenges in the build up. So I wasn't just couched to doing that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are living their life through, we have never thought for ourselves. We're just following a thing, and I'm not really enjoying it, but I'm too scared to start trying different things, because what if it's wrong? What if I fail? What if people judge me? And so it's going to happen anyway. So might as well start deciding what you want, and understand that when you decide on the thing that you're going to give your all to, if it is sorting yourself out financially, or being the best husband you can be, or best wife that you could be, or it's going to take time. You have to go all in the beginning, but your goal then is, how do I become more efficient so I can then give time to other areas of my life?
Yeah, I mean, failure is the best thing that you can ever endure and experience, because that's what makes a success that much more greater. And if it wasn't for failures, we really never really would achieve anything, right? You just live in a life of contentment, where it's comfortable, you're content, you're just floating along in life, right? There's nobody poking you, prodding you, challenging you. You're not challenging yourself. And so I think the greatest thing too, and it now that I'm a parent of two, and we talked about participation trophies. My daughter just had her first dance recital. They got a certificate. She got a trophy, and that's great. But in soccer, she just finished her first season in soccer. She's only 3 years old. Got a medal, all that kind of stuff. And I think that stuff is cool. It shows that she's acknowledged. Yep. She's been seen. She's part of a team. She made new friends. She did something that she just went out there for an hour and ran around. She didn't know what a goal was. She didn't know that she couldn't use her hands. I mean, we just threw her out there and let her go and let her learn on her own. And so I was so proud of her. But I think there's a time and place where you start creating those boundaries, to where we talked about, the challenges, and life isn't fair, and you have to earn certain things. And if you really want it, like if you really want to play that soccer next year, True, we're going to practice for it. You're not just going to show up on day one and expect to be good and expect to make that team. And so I think I don't know where that is. I don't know what age that is, but I have to imagine it's pretty soon, to where, letting her fall, letting her fail, letting her, hear something nasty be said to. I mean, we live in a day and age where things are said on the internet Things are, I mean, they're just soaking up everything around them, no matter what it is, right?
Yep.
And it's scary at some point, but also it kind of, my wife and I have to remind ourselves, like, we can't be the helicopter parents all the time. Like, let them go out, let them scrape their knees, let them get in trouble, let them climb the fences, let them hop just get in, let them experience, like, again, within boundaries, right? I'm not saying go out crazy and do stuff, but I mean, I just remember being a kid where I obviously knew what was right and what was wrong, but I would always push the boundary. I mean, I would always do something to where the cops were called and I was running from the cops, trying to hide. I would always get caught because I was the slow, pudgy kid who had no self-awareness and didn't know how to hide, and I always get caught. But I mean, it was those moments where, like, I had to push the boundary at some point. I had good friends. I had good people around me. I was never a troublemaker per se, where I was really putting my life or somebody else's life in danger. But I would always, I would toe that line, and my parents would let me, all right, if you want to toe that line, you're going to find out.
Yep.
Right. I'm not just going to ground you, but you may end up in jail. You may lose a scholarship opportunity. If you keep drinking like that, you're gonna get kicked off the team. If you keep showing up to practice hungover like that, I mean, you may not start no more. Like, is that the person you really want to be? And so, I mean, I still remember in high school, I had a drinking problem. I drank a lot, and I sacrificed, after the game, Friday and Saturday night. That's what I always looked forward to. Drinking as much as I can, get home safely. And thank God we did. But I was the guy that would be proud of, yeah, man, I got super smashed over the weekend.
What do you feel that is?
I think it's just, it's a social thing where you want to fit in.
Yep.
You want to be the cool kid on campus. You want to be respected. I mean, when you're in high school and college, like, if you can hang with everybody, you can throw them down with the best of them. You can be a good time and be a fun person to be around. I think that's just kind of how we are introduced on how to fit in socially and culturally within the United States. College is a time to experiment and party and have fun, but at the expense of what? I don't think we've ever really been taught at the expense of what.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you hear the horror stories, you hear the guys that get in accidents, they kill somebody in a DUI accident, they get arrested. But, I don't think we're really taught the repercussions that the decisions and choices we make at such a young age, how it really can affect the future of our life. You know what I'm saying? And so I think the world wants to tell you to go out and have fun, be you, experiment, whatever, but we're never taught what that really means and what the repercussions of that are. And so I think for me, when I got a little taste of discipline and getting in trouble, I didn't like that feeling. So my dream was always my dream of the NFL. I would start shying away from the drinking. I mean, not to say I didn't partake in it, but maybe not as much as I once did. And I'll never forget a conversation I had with my dad. I was my senior year in high school. I'm hungover in bed. It's noon on a Saturday. I had just come off a long bender the night before with all my buddies. My mom's upset. She knows I'm hungover. She knows I just reek of alcohol. My dad's working. My dad's a police officer now, right? So I know, like, hey, don't let dad find out.
Yep.
He calls me and he's like, listen, son, do you want to feel the exhilaration of being high, whether you're smoking dope or drinking? Do you want to feel that high, or do you want to feel the high of making that big sack in a football game, or making that touchdown, or winning the game? Would you rather have that high, or the high of being sick in bed? Like, is it worth being sick in bed, all day long, just setting yourself back a few more days? You're not going to feel normal until Wednesday. You're not going to feel normal till Thursday.
Great point.
If your dream is the NFL, do you want to feel the high of the success on the field and doing good off the field? Or do you want to feel this nasty high that's very temporary? It's good in the moment, but you pay for it tenfold after the fact. And I'll never forget that conversation that he had with me as I'm laying in bed hungover. Like, you're right. Like, I don't like how I feel right now. I feel ashamed. I'm embarrassed. I don't even know what I did the night before to embarrass myself in front of my friends, right? It's like, and this is before social media. You know what I'm saying? Everyone now has a phone and a camera.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Tough time growing up.
So I just always kind of carried that with me. And so when I got into college, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to drink tonight, boys. I'll have fun with you, but I'm not going to drink. And that's kind of where I'm not a big drinker at all today. Like I don't like the way it tastes. I don't like the way I feel. I feel guilty doing it. I don't like setting myself back. I don't like being sluggish. Listen, I'm already sluggish as a parent as it is because I'm drained. Add alcohol on top of that? No, sir, I'm not signing up for that. So again, that goes back to the discipline, and it's all phases of life. Like there's different disciplines that you have to instill into your life to achieve something, whether it's being a better parent or a better husband. There's sacrifices to be made on that end, whether it's football, whether it's training. There's so many different things, and discipline is rooted into all of it. And again, you shy away from certain things to fill a bucket more on one end, and maybe this bucket over here is not as full, and it's all about balance. But I think for me now, it's really my priority is my faith and my family, my wife and my girls, being a husband and parent, and the ebbs and flows of what that looks like. But then also to kind of touch on what you said, like, is football really important to me? Do I love football? Yes. Is it everything that it once was? No. And I think that's a healthy relationship now that I have with football. My desire is to play, but if I don't play, am I going to be ashamed of not playing again? No, I'll be happy. I fulfilled a childhood dream. I got to the pinnacle. I got to, if I would have told my 8-year-old self or my 10-year-old self, hey man, you'll play 10 years in the NFL, I would have never believed you, and I would have been happy with just 1 year in the NFL or just being in a camp with the team, wearing that helmet for one time, you know what I'm saying? And so for now, I think the balance for me is so important, especially because I want to be a great role model for my girls, but I also want to be a very present husband too, and I want they sacrifice a lot, and we could touch on relationships and community on part 2 more, but the family dynamic really is a sacrifice when it comes to professional sports, because the season's long. You move to another city. The schedule is very demanding. I have to be very focused most of the week, and my wife and my girls pay for that. Yes, I afford them the luxury and the experience of that, and I get to share that with them. But that doesn't mean that I'm always the best husband and the best dad during that time too, right? So, man, my wife can share her story, but she feels like she's on the back burner during the season because it's all about football, And so it's just a crazy roller coaster of how this whole professional sports thing goes, and the disciplines and the sacrifices and the challenges, because challenging ourselves is so important. And a funny little story, like I just did, I went to Justin's gym the other day, right? And I'm just sitting there and not warmed up. He's like, hey man, you want to do the Athlos challenge of the month? I'm like, what is it? He's like, all right, you got to burn 50 calories on the Dynabike as fast as you can. I'm like, all right, what's the record? Somebody's got like 34, 35 seconds. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to turn down a challenge, right? So I get on the bike, and I'm not kidding you, man. That I hit 34, just under 35 seconds, right? I burned 50 calories on the bike. That was the worst 35 seconds that I had put myself through in most recent memory, right? It's one of those things where you get off the bike, you want to throw up, you feel like you're going to pass out, you're just drained. Like, that was a bar fight. Haymaker after haymaker for 35 seconds. I was in that ring, I was in that arena for 35 seconds. It sucked. But I walked away with like, gosh dang, I feel crappy right now, but I'm so glad that I did that. You know what I'm saying? You can apply that to so many different things, like whether it's a marathon, whether it's just going for your first run, and maybe you just run a quarter mile. Yeah. Maybe you just run 1 lap. The exhilaration and you just feel so proud of yourself for even making that first step of just challenging yourself. It's not a big, it may be a big mountain for people to climb at first, but that big mountain becomes small, it becomes a hill, and you're like, all right, I'm going to run 2 laps this time. It's same with your buddy that did the marathon stuff with you. Like, he hadn't ran for a long time. He did a 3K first, did a 5K, then he did 10K. It's like those little stacks and those little victories over time are just so great for all humans, all men, to just be challenged at something. Takes you out of your comfort zone. It pushes you to a new level that you never thought you could get to. And it's so incredibly important as you as a coach, as me as a dad, to instill these things into people and teach them that they are so much more than what they think they can be. You know what I'm saying? And whether it's a physical achievement, whether it's, I don't know what it is, challenging yourself in a class at school that you never thought you could pass, reading a book.
That was a big one for me originally.
Seriously, yeah. I mean, reading a book. When's the last time we actually just sat down and just read a book from cover to cover with not like getting distracted by anything and just soaking up the information, daydreaming a little bit as you're reading? Like, there's so many great achievements that we just don't even tap into anymore because we're kind of groomed and we're kind of pushed into this in society right now just to be comfortable, man. Be comfortable, stay in your lane, don't step on anybody's feet, don't ruffle any feathers, don't upset anybody. Like, it's just, it's almost like diminished what manhood is supposed to be.
Yeah, striving for comfort, and that's exactly where we end up. We everyone achieves what they want, and that's why they have. Whether you want to look at it as mediocre, where people aren't happy, because most people aren't. If you look at a lot of the research, it's because we grow up going, okay, my idea of success is a comfortable relationship, a comfortable job, a comfortable, case of living, and that's what most people are doing. So then, when there's opportunity to excel, it's like, nah, pretty good, or what, as we've touched on, it's like scary and all that sort of stuff. But we can dive into that in section 2.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue, man. So I guess stay tuned for part 2, man. We'll change our shirt. Yeah. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Guys, be sure to tune in next week for part 2 of this incredible chat with Matt. We dive into so much more in the second segment. If you loved what you heard in this first segment, make sure you share it on social media. Tag myself at Lachlan Stuart and Matt, and we will love to have a chat and can't wait to share part 2 of this chat next week on the Man That Can Projects podcast. Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachie Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.